Welcome back to the Blueprint to Ultra podcast with your hosts, Jeff Winchester and Steve Epifano. Thank you so much for taking the time to download the episode and to plug us in your ears, probably take us on a run. Whatever it is that you do, thank you for joining us today. Listen, we know that running ultras is hard, incredibly hard. And the goal of the show is to help you put the pieces of your ultra running puzzle together. And so we do that by interviewing a variety of guests just with the single intent of allowing you to get all the different pieces that you need to create your own blueprint. Well, on today's show, our guest has been crushing ultra since 2013. And by my count, she has won at least 9 100-mile races in that time. Does not count all the other races that she's done, but she's won at least 9 of them herself. She is a regular fixture of Across the Years 48-hour race, where for the last 3 years, she has set the course record or tied it because it was her own record for all 3 of those years. She currently holds that record at 212.7 miles, which is an absolute astounding number for 48 hours. If I'm correct, I think she also beat the second place person by like 30 miles, if that's correct. She'll probably correct me at some point in this episode, and I hope she does. But just a few weeks ago, she also, on March 21st, won the Badger Mountain 100, which, by the way, was an overall win. She also won it in 2024. And in 2021, she was the first female as well. The jewel, though, in her crown is her first place finish last year in a time of 73 hours, 31 minutes, and 25 seconds at the Cocodona 250, which is absolutely incredible because my co-host has run the Cocodona 250 a few times and he came nowhere close to that. And since Cocodona...
Yikes.
Yeah, well, we can say that. And since Cocodona is coming up in just about 5 weeks from the time of this recording, we thought, who better to talk all things Cocodona than the reigning champ herself, Rachel Entrekin. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. Wow, that is quite the intro. Thanks.
You're quite the runner, so it is a well-deserved thing. And so we are so grateful for you to taking the time to join us today. And we believe you're going to spit a lot of great knowledge for everyone who's listening. And we've worked through all of our audio issues and all of our issues before, so we are good to go and just looking forward to today's show. Rachel, as we do with all of our guests, we know that most people don't just get out of the womb and start to run. And so for you yourself, we know that you started running in 2010 with road marathons, and then you eventually got into trail running in 2013 or to ultra running in 2013. So if you could, just for those listening, give us an abridged version, if you will, of how you got into running specifically, and then also into ultra running.
Yeah, I think maybe for some, I know there's instances of people who are like, yeah, I just ran a 50K one day, but I was not that person. I really slowly got into it. So yeah, I did my first marathon. It was my local marathon in Alabama in Birmingham. I did that in 2010. I actually met a trail runner on that run who convinced me to do trail marathons for a while, which I did hate when I first started. I thought it was really inefficient because I could do the same distance in half the time if I just ran on the road. So I was a bit of a road snob for a while, but then that same person convinced me to do a 50K in South Carolina in 2013. And for some reason at that time, I was in the right space to just enjoy that race. The aid stations all have like gummy bears and beer at it, which was pretty cool. All the aid stations at road marathons have terrible gels and sometimes bananas. So I appreciated the vibe a lot more. I think I was ready to embrace the culture of the ultra then. And then, I slowly just went up. I did 2 50-milers about a couple years later, or actually, I don't remember when I did them, but in my second one, I actually tore my meniscus, and then I was terrified of the 50-mile distance. But that is when I discovered fixed time running. So I did 6-hour races because it's not 50 miles. And then I did 12-hour races in which I stopped at like 48 miles because it's not 50 miles. And again, that is runner math. And then eventually I was kind of like, well, what is the difference between a 48-mile run and a 50? There's no difference there. So I signed up for a 12-hour race. I wound up with like 73 miles at that race. And then I was like, okay, we need to do a 100-miler. So did my first 100-miler at a 24-hour event, which I highly recommend if anyone is curious about 100-milers. Doing it at a fixed time event is the easiest way to get it done, I think. Easy is with an asterisk because there's definitely some mental challenges that come with fixed time racing. But yeah, I I wanted it logistically to be as easy as possible. So I signed up for a 24, did my first 100, eventually moved out to Washington, actually started doing trail running. That was a little bit more of what I was looking for. And then, yeah, never really looked back. Trail running is pretty fun. I do really like the fixed time racing just to kind of get some of the details down in a setting that's pretty controlled. So figuring out things like nutrition and sleep, and exactly how in shape I am, because there's nothing that is more objective than a fixed time race. But yeah, so I really, I mean, I do enjoy road running still, I think, especially now that I moved out to Colorado and all the roads are gravel. So it's almost like trail. But I do think that there's a lot of value to every aspect of running. So I am happy that I enjoy all of them. Because, you know, road running, you can figure out, you know, your speed and your fitness. Trail running, you get to see all the pretty sights and eat fun snacks. And then fixed time running is so social. So that's one component that I don't really get a lot of in trail running, unfortunately. I tend to run a lot of the races by myself. Until recently, I have never used pacers. So yeah, running with people constantly in that kind of loop format is super fun, I think. So that's why I've been a fixture across the years for many, many years, is because it's like a reunion. I mean, you see the same people over and over, and it's really fun.
So I'm curious though, because, and I wasn't sure if we're going to go into fixed time races or not. Again, like you mentioned, a fixed time race is anything that's going to be a 3 hour, 6 hour, 12 hour, any length of time is the start and stop of the race itself. And you just do as many miles as you possibly can. And majority of times they're on a track or they're on some sort of paved surface, sometimes dirt, not as common and stuff, but or it could be like a greenway trail, but it is generally a larger number of people that are all in the same kind of pattern, if you will, and running at different paces, but you do tend to see them. But you said that, and you said it's a little bit easier. And in my brain, I'm like, I hate fixed time races. And the reason is because I fall into the trap sometimes of knowing I can take a little bit longer break because eventually this race is going to end. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid
you
that?
Can
because
stop at any time.
Right. Like, so how do you avoid that trap of a fixed time race? If your goal is, say, I want to get 100 miles in 24 hours, 36 hours, or whatever that number is, like some people even do a 48-hour race because they want to do their first 100. So how do you continue to just keep moving extra miles or whatever it is, knowing that eventually if I just take a break, the clock's going to stop?
Well, that is called mental fortitude, friend. The first couple of 24s and 48s I did, I mean, it was very hard. Once I got to 100 miles, I was like, all right, well, that's, I'm good. I'm done. But I mean, the more I practiced at them, it's a skill just like anything else. I mean, the more you practice, the more you're able to kind of push that boundary a little bit. I do remember the first 48 that I got 90 miles at, and I was like, oh, I can do 200. Like I can do 200 in one of these. And then, I mean, it really is just about like, I say that fixed time racing is easy, but I think I'm doing it a disservice. It is mentally, I think, the most challenging format because you can stop at any time. And your stuff is all there. I mean, you can, and I mean, some people even in like longer races, I mean, they'll go and sleep in a hotel. They'll go take a shower. They'll go to IHOP and stuff. So, I mean, the temptation really is there to quit at any point, but I think that is part of the beauty of the fixed time race is figuring out how much am I willing to stick to my goals and how much am I willing to stay out here and run this same stupid loop over and over and over and over again. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, the first couple fixed time races I did, I was not as successful at them, especially once, I got into the overnight format. So 12 hours, who cares? Stay out there all day. It's fine. But like I said, if you're doing a 24 and you get to 100, it's like, well, I would like to be done now because I can go to sleep. So it just took me practice. I mean, the first time I've done almost any, let's exclude Cocodona because that was a psychotic fluke. But the first time I've done any distance, I generally am not very successful at it. I think it takes a lot of trial and error and patience, or at least it has for me. So.
And I like what you said about the fixed time races because that's when I got my first 100. I was at a 24-hour race at Jackpot.
Oh, nice.
And then I think the first time I saw you, I think I was at Jackpot. I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. You were doing the 48 and I was doing the 24, and you were just cruising the entire time.
That race is so fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that race.
Yeah, it's great. But I like what you said, like, because it's kind of a controlled environment, that's where you can really dial in a lot of things. You can dial in your nutrition, dial in what your aid station's gonna look like, or what you need your crew to do at those stops that you can employ later on. I think that's a good thing for people to get, especially if that 100-mile distance seems big for people. If it's a loop, then they know that, hey, 3 miles, I'll be back there. I can get whatever I need and then get moving again. But it
Yeah,
is
and
like
I
you
mean,
said, does take a lot to, hey, I gotta not stop here for 20 minutes. It's a 2-minute stop and keep going.
yeah. And I think everybody at the fixed time format is super encouraging. That's
Yeah.
one of the things I like a lot is, I'll pass people and we'll like high five every single freaking time. So I don't know, it's really fun. I'm hard. It's funny because I am very into trail running, but then there's this weird, I mean, the two things could not be more opposite, but
Yeah.
I like both of them a lot. You see the same people at across the years every single year. You see the same people at Jackpot that you see it across the
Hmm.
years. I mean, there is a very niche community that really enjoys that fixed time format. And I love hanging out with them. I think they have so much wisdom. And I mean,
Oh yeah.
I will never forget, it was actually at Jackpot. I want to say it was in 2022. And there were 5 men in the 80 to 85 category going for the 100-mile
Yeah.
record. And I mean, when the first guy finished, I wept. Like
Aw.
it was, I mean, there's some incredible storylines with the people who are doing those races. And so getting to watch all of that play out is awesome. It's cool. I like it.
I think what you're saying has a lot of credibility for those who are maybe trying their first ultra and they're not sure if they can do a 50-mile race or a 100-mile race, a typical one that has a point to point or ending point, and what you're saying is true, because the ultra running community, we say it on every podcast. Basically, it's one of those communities that's so welcoming, so encouraging. It's a place that you're always going to feel like there are people who are struggling like you are, but they're always going to be behind you and support you along the way. And in a looped course like you're talking about, they're always with you. So if you're out doing a 50-mile trail race that's point to point, you may not see people for miles at times. And so if it's your first one, that can be psychologically harder than having a crowd around you. And so if you're interested in doing your first ultra, I think what you're saying, Rachel, is a very good piece of advice, is look at those fixed time races and worry less about, I got to get 50 miles and maybe you're going to get 47 miles and that'll be your PR. Like, that's still huge. And so
Yeah.
there'll be plenty of people around you to support you. I think that's a really good point.
And there's no cutoffs.
Right.
There are no
There's
cutoffs.
no
Well,
DNF.
there's the time cutoff, I
Keep
guess. And
moving.
yeah, there's no
Yeah, that
DNFs.
end one.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just keep moving.
There is no failure in across the years, if you will. Right. Except one thing you did say, and again, we're going to move off in a second, but you said, except, you're trying to get your goals. And that's what caught me, is like, you make those races about certain goals, be it you're going to, try out your nutrition or hydration, or you've got a certain mileage you're trying to get to. Like, if you make the race itself goal centric, as opposed to something else that we're looking for when we go run the Umstead 100 or the, Badger Mountain 100. Like, there's a different type of focus there. And so I think there's a lot to it that, for those of us who shy away them, self included, that is worth investigating. I mean, I love the ultra running community. I have a lot of friends in the community and stuff, but I can see where being on a loop course, you get to see them all the time, is just as good. So
Yeah. And last thing before we move on for fixed time races, I think looped courses are also a really good test of your, or you can use them as a test of your fitness. There have been a lot of 48-hour races where I have just been like, you know what, I'm going to go balls to the walls and just see how long I can keep this up for. And I mean, I've always been surprised at how long I can keep it up for. One of the things that I did at Across the Years last year in preparation for a very different race, but Cocodona, was like, all right, I'm going to see how hard I can push for how long, and use it as a litmus test for, am I ready for this 250-mile race I just signed up for? So I mean, even though the two formats are extraordinarily different, doing something like a fixed time race before a hard trail event, I mean, it gave me a ton of confidence going into Cocodona that I could actually, I should consider a completion actually something that I could do. So,
do you think because of your years of experience at this point in ultra running, that's why you will approach a fixed time event with that kind of mindset? Because I imagine in the very beginning, like you did the, I think I have in my notes, in 2016, you did your first 100 in a 24-hour event. I'm assuming on that you approach that more conservatively, not balls to the wall, if you will, and so it's just interesting to me just to hear the evolution of probably how you've approached them now, because now being a more experienced ultra runner, more accomplished, and you can see opportunities to say, I'm just going to see what happens. And I think that's a really good point. And a lot of ultra runners now that are running these races tend to shy away from those types of opportunities because they're like, I still don't want to DNF and I'll do everything I can. I'm like, why don't you just go race and see what happens?
I think my entire focus has shifted to I'm just going to see what happens. I don't think I set goals in a traditional way. I think I just want to do my best and I am just going to see what happens. And if that means that I blow up and spectacularly fail, that has happened before. I will learn something from that event. And then at the next race, I don't know. I mean, I do think I listened to a podcast, and that was actually, I think it was on like a non-running podcast, but Courtney DeWalter did it. She talked about this filing cabinet that she had of just like, here is every race that I've ever done, and I'm learning something from all of them. And when I get to a situation that feels similar, I go through the filing cabinet and I pull out that experience and I apply it to the situation. And I say, well, what can we learn? What can we apply and what can we learn? And that is something that I think about with every single race that I do. I mean, every race is just an opportunity to continue to learn something about how to do the next one better, or how to do the next one differently, or how to create a different goal for yourself. So yeah, running is so the best. I mean, you can do anything you want to during any race and find a way to make it successable, I think. So even a DNF, I mean, I've had DNFs where I'm like, fuck yeah, I DNF'd that race. So,
but God, I mean, that's so refreshing because I think so many runners that are newer in the sport and stuff, and maybe even those that have been around, are just terrified of DNFing. Like they're just terrified of that. And it's just refreshing to hear like, it's worth it. Just like go for it and have fun with it.
It sucks. I mean, it sucks in the moment to DNF, but I think all of my best, or all the lessons that I have applied more often have been from races that I have not finished. Actually, my friend Amy Maurer wrote a book where she asked a bunch of people, hey, send me stories about your DNFs and what you learned from them. And that is one of my favorite running pieces of literature because it's just, and I contributed a piece to it as well. And like, I really do think the successes are fun, but I don't learn nearly as much from times that I'm successful as I do from times that I fail. Yeah. So, failing sucks, but eventually the hurt fades and you're like, okay, well, I look at it as an opportunity to be like, what can I do better the next time?
Yeah. I call them do not forget. Yeah. It's just my way of looking at the same thing is that don't forget, in other words, what happened. Do not forget, you DNF, but there's things you can pull from it and learn from it. So I think it's great. And I think it's very refreshing to hear somebody who is successful as you are, but also not afraid of doing that and willing to just go for it at times too. Like you said, your goals have changed. And I think that's really cool. And we're going to talk about your goals for an upcoming race you've got in just a second.
Well, I guarantee you it will be, see what happens.
I love that goal.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the reason that, everybody's getting hyped up. Obviously the Arizona Monster 300 is taking place, I think, today.
Tomorrow.
If I'm correct.
Tomorrow.
And everybody's talking about the Arizona Monster 300. And then Cocodona 250 is now the biggest story, if you will, when it comes to 200-mile races. And we would be remiss not to talk about your previous year as well as this upcoming year. And so, as we mentioned at the very beginning, you ran this race in 73 hours, 31 minutes, and 25 seconds. The record is 71 hours, I believe. And so
I know.
Off
I know what that record is.
I just, I'm not saying we're talking. Yeah, I'm not saying we're talking about goals or anything, but I'm just going to point out that was only 2 hours off. And
no,
you called it
painfully aware.
That was also on a slightly different course too.
Yeah,
that was the year of the forest fire.
So for those that aren't familiar with the race, I feel like everybody should know what Cocodona 250 is by now, but they don't. But the race takes place on Monday, May 5th, goes to Saturday the 10th. Rachel will not be out there on the 10th, but There will be plenty
I
of people
might.
who are.
No one knows. No one knows.
The
Nothing
course-
is guaranteed in ultra running. Nothing is guaranteed.
This is true. The course is 256 miles point to point with 40,000 feet of elevation gain and 35,000 feet of loss this year. There's a cutoff of 125 hours, which is a long time. However, again, you came nowhere close to that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You
called.
I was just going to say, we talked about this before you came on too. I said, Rachel was home, showered, and then had another day before I even finished.
Oh, nice.
So,
Wait, how did
yeah.
you do? I'm so sorry. I don't know how you did, but did you have a good time? Did you enjoy it?
I had a blast. I mean, whatever the time was, I had a good time. So I did it. So I've done Cocodona 3 times, finished all of them, but my time has not improved at all. So I just can't fathom.
That's right.
I've been around 115 to 116 every year,
Dang.
and I'm okay with that. I just don't know.
I just think that
it's
is
crazy.
massively impressive. I think that is, that to me is way more impressive than anything that I'm doing. Cause you're out there for so long. I don't even know what I would be such a cranky person. And y'all just keep on going.
No, not too bad.
I don't know. There's some races that have the DFL award, and that is absolutely the award that is the most impressive one out there, because
Agreed.
I got a lot of for better or for worse, I did get a lot of attention after that race, but I don't know, people who are not in it for the victory and are in it for other reasons, if no one is going to know or care that you finished Cocodona except for you. And I think that motivation is incredible. So kudos. I don't care that your time never improved. Whatever. I just think, that is
each year for sure.
Well, good. See, you took stuff from previous years and applied it and learned. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think that's very awesome. I'm impressed that you can go that long without sleep, and that's something that is that hard.
I think it's impressive for anybody who accomplishes any of these things. It is mind-boggling. And I think the effort is completely different for those who finish at the front and those who finish at the back. I think the compounded suffering is significantly different. I think the effort of intensity, though, is also different for those in the front. I think it's completely different races and different experiences for both sides. You know what I mean? There's an intensity thing and then there's a compounding fatigue, and it's both. These are different.
Yeah. And the thing that I really love about running is that no matter if you're at the front or at the back, everybody is giving it their best.
100%.
And the time to me is completely irrelevant. So as long as, I don't know. Cool.
Well,
cool sport.
Yeah. you said
what I love about running too is if I were to play baseball, I'm never going to be on the same field as the pros or the elite players. But running, whether I'm running the LA Marathon or if I'm running Cocodona, I'm on the same course at somewhat of the same time as the elites and the pros. And that's great.
Like Courtney DeWolter. I'm going to fangirl so hard. I'm going to fangirl so hard.
Well, Rachel, it's going to be your job to get her on our show also, but we'll leave that.
Oh, good Lord. Well, let me become I'll become her best friend first.
Well, when you beat her this year, you will be more than her best friend. You will be who she looks up to. So
big fighting words, my friend.
I love it. I think you have the game so far that you have been playing very well. So at the beginning, though, you called this a psychotic fluke.
Oh, Cocodona victory?
You did. And I wrote this down.
I did.
You called this a psychotic fluke. Why do you feel that way?
Probably, I don't know. I think that might be a humility thing. Because if you make fun of yourself, then no one can do it. Or it's, I don't know. I don't know. I did. I really worked hard. In no way was I expecting to win. But I think if you talked to any single member of my crew that was out there, they would have bet money on the fact that I had a very good chance of doing that. It's hard for me to put any stock in any success that I have ever had, because again, this sport is so dependent on everything going perfectly well. One of the reasons why I won this race is because Mika Thews, who was leading from mile probably 150 to 200 basically, or maybe even more than that. She was 6 hours ahead of me, and then just suddenly wasn't. And then
Mhm.
I just was there, like So, I mean, really in this sport, anything can happen. So I don't know. I mean, it has always felt unreal to me that race. I mean, on both, honestly, on both the men's and women's sides, the finishes last year were pretty unbelievable.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, they were really tight.
yeah, it
Like
was,
Jeff was leading almost the entire race until coming off of Eldon.
yeah. So, and I mean, I was in a very comfortable second place for, I think I was in the top three, I think for the most part, which
Mhm.
my goal, I had told my crew, I had a couple goals for the race. My number one goal was finish the race because I'd never done it before. My number two goal was I'd love to podium. And then my number three goal was be in a bed by Thursday night. So, I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I actually think I would win the race because I think that that's a bad goal to set. Because if you don't, I mean, I don't know, if you don't, what then? Like, are you going to be disappointed that you finished something that's incredibly hard? Like, that is sad. I went through a period of time where I was having a lot of successes in 100s, and I set my goal. And this is actually specifically well, I don't need to name the race, but I had a goal for a race that I went to, and I was like, I'm going to win. And I trained super hard and then overtrained. And then during the race, got a stomach bleed because I was taking too much ibuprofen and spectacularly did horribly at that race. And I actually had a conversation with my mom in which I was very defensive because she told me, like, well, I'm worried because all you care about is like getting first place. And I hated her for saying that at the time, but then I thought about it more and more, and I was like, well, that is a stupid goal. I don't need my goal to be to win this race. My goal needs to be to do my best. So that was my goal going into Cocodona. I mean, the fact that I won to me is insane. I mean, it's insane that I won that race. I'm not going to say that I had no business winning that race because I did put in a lot of work and I spent a lot of hours training and preparing, but it is still, that race is unreal to me. I mean, that entire experience was from start to
It's
finish,
crazy.
from crowdsourcing my way to the start line to having my crew fall apart 2 weeks before and then having it all just like be the best. Like it was the best. I mean, it was a fairy tale, to be honest. So a psychotic fluke. I stand by those words.
We've come full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I like
it's
that you
amazing.
say, yeah, I like that you say that your goal is not necessarily to win, but to do your best. I mean, it's to let the results take care of themselves and to put all the right inputs. We just had this conversation with one of our other guests, put together all your inputs and let the outputs be what they are. And I think it makes a lot of sense. It's also interesting that you do self-deprecate, like you mentioned, and I think that's okay. I think that's what a lot of us will do when we're not sure how to handle success at times. It's funny because before the show I'm looking back at all the medals and all the buckles behind you, and it's like you said that you had kept them in a box for so long, and it's like, is there's like this huge connection, like for you on even on how you kind of see some of those things. And it's like I think it's not cocky to say I did this, and I think you can be proud of that. And I'm not saying you're not proud of it at all, so don't almost hear that. But I think I like the idea that, like you said, I'm not going to make it a goal to win. I'm going to make it a goal to do my best, and be at that podium. That's good too, And just if I end up first, well, then sorry, Mika, sorry, Courtney, sorry, all you people. This is what it's like.
And I mean,
Go ahead, Steve.
yeah, as you said, at the end of the day, that's really the only thing that you can control because, like you said, everything has to go right. And the only thing you can really control is what you do and your effort. And that's all. So Jeff and I are both coaches too. And that's really the only thing we ask of our athletes is, hey, just go give your best effort. And like you said, see what happens. As long as you're giving your best effort. And if that ends up in a DNF, then it ends up in a DNF. But you're out there doing what you showed up to do and putting your best foot forward. That's all anybody can ever ask, really.
Yeah.
So I've talked to a variety of levels of runners in just the history of doing podcasting. And what I hear, though, from many of them is, yeah, I mean, it's easy because I have a fitness level of being able to run, but it sucks at times. Like it's really hard. So for yourself, can you tell those who are listening to something like what was the hardest section or one of your lows that you went through in 2024?
Okay, that's of all of 2024 or in Cocodona?
No, Cocodona.
Cocodona. Yeah.
Because like, how much time do you have? So during Cocodona, actually, it's funny because I did have a pretty big bonk. Never during the race did I think that I was never going to finish. So I am actually really happy about that because even though I felt terrible, it was like, well, I can always slog through this because again, time.
Yeah.
But I would actually say that the lowest point, and you can ask my pacer in this section, my lowest section was Eldon. So at that point, I am in the lead by several hours. Like it is essentially in the bag, but I completely fell apart on Eldon. I was asking my pacer probably every 20 seconds, like, where is the top of this mountain? Where is the top? I am tired. Where is the top of them? Where's the aid station? And then you actually get to the top and the aid station.
And then you got to keep going.
You have to go in that saddle and it's bullshit. But
it's
anyway.
really cold and windy.
Yeah, I was there at like probably 2 a.m. and it was freezing. And I was just cranky. I was very, and it's, and that's my biggest regret of that race actually is my attitude at the very end of the race when I should have been ecstatic that I was going to win. And I think in the back of my head, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. But I was also just like, oh my God, like I hate this mountain. Like I hate this mountain. I want to be done with this mountain. And then I did know that I was fairly close to the course record. And I got to the top of the mountain and I was like, I have 1 hour and 10 minutes to do 8 miles. Like, let's go. And then that's not a realistic goal for mile like 230. So, but yeah, so I don't know. That was definitely, I did have a lot of instances throughout probably mile like 125 to probably mile 170, where I'm still figuring out nutrition, so don't ask me nutrition questions. I don't know. But I took in, I think, too many electrolytes, and I was violently ill for a long time. So, maybe that could be considered a low point. But again, my mental state was actually fine, despite the fact that was happening. My mental low point was actually at the very end of the race.
Well, they like to put a giant mountain in right before the finish line.
Dude. And this year we gotta go down that steep section and I'm gonna die. But
and it's like 20, I think I counted before, it was like 28 or 30 switchbacks and they're so close together because it's so steep.
I'm glad you counted. I hope that do you think that's an accurate number? Because I'm gonna like remember that number and just count them. Like, he said there was only 20. Why am I on 26? But yeah, I
20
just
to 30.
okay, whatever. I mentally was not prepared for the end of the race being the part that I mentally struggled with the most. But anyway, I guess that can happen. So for all of you listeners, prepare yourself for the ending.
So tell us about sleep. What role did sleep play in the race for you?
And this is actually something that I learned doing fixed time racing, is that I am never going to plan for sleep. I am just going to sleep when I'm tired. So one thing that I actually learned from my good buddy, Matt Shepard, is he always, or I don't, maybe he didn't say this and my delirious brain like interpreted it this way, but we were doing a 48-hour together and he basically said like, so it's a lap. And he was like, if I ever get really tired, I tell myself I'm going to do one more lap and I'm going to think about sleeping the entire time. And then the next lap, I'm going to lie down and usually within like seconds, he's asleep. And that's actually the strategy that I apply to fixed time racing and trail racing is like, well, I'm not going to plan for sleep, but like once I feel like I'm a liability issue and I'm really, really tired, then I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes and determine if that's actually true. Like, am I tired or am I just bored or am I hungry or do I need to, I don't know, whatever thing. But yeah, spend the next 10 minutes determining whether or not that is actually something that you want to do. And then if it is, then take a nap. And the amount of time I usually will do at first 15 minutes. But if it's like at Cocodona when I was in that pretty ill state, my crew actually made the executive, because I was like 15 minutes and then passed out in the back of the van. But my crew actually made the executive decision to let me sleep for 2 hours, which one of the things that I did during Cocodona was I just decided explicitly that I was going to trust everything that my crew said. And so when they woke me up, I was like, whatever, 2 hours. Okay. Like, fine. So yeah, I mean, I have no sleep plan for this year either. If I get tired, whether it's on day 1 or I mean, I hope if I'm getting close to being done, I'm just gonna not care. But yeah, I mean, if I'm sleepy, I will sleep. That is my plan. I guess
I think that
it is.
works. I mean,
Yeah,
like I
not
said,
rocket science.
yeah, it's a little bit different, but then for me, I kind of did the same thing. And if whether it was like an hour nap at an aid station or a 10-minute nap on the trail, like that saves you
Hmm.
like 45 minutes to an hour of like just death marching, and you can kind of get back
Exactly.
to work a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah. I kind of tend to let things go within the last 10 minutes of a race. Like if I'm chafing somewhere, or like if I'm really tired, or if I'm whatever. And it's like the last 10%, I'll be like, well, I'm going to power through this. But any other time, I mean,
Yeah.
fix issues. And that includes if you're sleep deprived, like, you know, fix the issue. I think I slept during Cocodona on day maybe 2. And I wasn't during the daytime, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to do that. I thought I could, because
Hmm.
I've made it through entire 48-hour races without sleeping. I had no idea what to expect. So, I mean, my body told me like, hey, you need to sleep. And I was like, okay. And then yeah. So I don't know. I think our bodies, you know, tend to know what they need. We just need to have a keen ear and listen to them.
Yeah. And you said like that you made a conscious decision to trust what your crew said. How did you do that? And how did you actually like find people that you could trust for that? Because that's one of the things that's difficult for people, I think, sometimes,
Yeah. So every single
especially when they
person
blow
that
apart 2 weeks before the race.
yeah. And I mean, I have no ill will towards anybody that like, because I had a person who had to drop out, and I was like, fine. Like, I don't mind, because everybody that was on my crew, I wanted them to be as dedicated. I mean, that race is a team effort all the
Yeah.
way. And I wanted them to be very invested in the end result, as invested at least as I was. So everybody on my crew, I had spent, I mean, hours on trails with at a time. And I mean, most everybody I think had seen me at a low point during a race, and then like helped me get through it, or not even during races, but like during training runs. So I mean, it was a lot of, it was actually, I don't know, I find it pretty easy to find crew people, because it's like, well, who do I enjoy hanging out with? Because we're going to be hanging out together for up to 5 days. So I need to, trust that this person is going to be invested in my success at this event. I need to trust that this person has enough experience to know when I'm just being a whiny little bitch and when I actually am having a hard time. And then, yeah, I don't know. So I just spent enough time with everybody on my team that when the time came for them to make decisions for me, I knew that they were not doing it. I mean, I don't even know what like terrible reason they would do it for. Because I mean, I think my crew's goal was probably for me to win the race. My goal was not that, but yeah. So I knew that they wanted to watch me succeed. Um, so I trusted that every decision I even sent out an email before the race that was like, if I am in a bad spot and you find that it is not safe for me to continue, like, I will trust you in that regard as well, even though that is not,
Wow.
I'm sure, what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think trusting I was on a podcast where I think somebody asked me like, what was the most important thing about Cocodona, because that is the first race that I've ever had a crew. I've never
Wow.
had a crew before then. And that is, I mean, that race like showed me that I like having, and I mean, I hesitate to say I've never had a crew, because I do feel like even though they're not there, I have a crew at every race that is in my corner, like cheering me
Yeah.
on. But yeah, I mean, having people that you trust in your corner and physically there to help you and pace you and make sure you eat snacks and hold your hair as you barf. And, I thought that was really awesome. And I'm thankful to everybody that was able to be there to help me succeed at that race.
Yeah. I don't know how people do it without crew. That's
Me neither,
sure.
dude. I don't. I mean, I do, but I certainly it makes it way
Yeah.
better. It makes it way easier to have a crew. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, I just think it's
um,
one thing. I think it's one thing to say you trust, you're going to trust your crew, and it's another thing to actually trust the crew.
Yeah.
And like when you're alone, I think that's something we've talked about multiple times ourselves with others. Steve and I have, is that just being able to do that and to believe that your crew, like you've asked them to kind of give you this feedback and to help you along the way. Well, in the moment or in the race itself, you really don't think very well. Like runners in those sections need people to do some of the thinking for them, and that's a really hard piece of control to get rid of when you've planned so much for your own execution in all the months leading up to the actual race. And so kudos to you, particularly on the first time having a crew in person. I think it's a remarkable thing. So Steve has mentioned where he was in the race. I've never done a 200-mile race. I'm a mid to the back of the packer myself, and I am never, ever, ever, I'm not even going to pretend to believe, ever going to have cameras following me along as a leader of a race. Unless, of course, it's just me and nobody else has signed up. And then they're like, who is this doofy that's doing the only race?
look at
Right.
this guy.
Right. Like, so I'm never going to have that. And I'm really okay with that. But for you, what kind of pressure was that?
I just did not think about it.
Okay.
Mm.
So,
How did you
'cause
ignore it?
I don't know. I think my only, like I said, I mean, my only goal was getting to Flagstaff in one piece. So
Hmm.
I was very like, that's, I mean, it was when I found out that Mika was not running currently and that I was
Mhm.
in the lead. I mean, that did change a little bit because then my goal was like, I am winning this race. Like, I am going to win this race. But really, I mean, I've always said that I think that the race is in the last like 30% of any race. And then you
Yeah.
just spend the first 70% getting to the race.
Mhm.
And so that was always kind of my plan with Cocodona was like just survive. And then in the last 50 miles, try to see what you have left. And as it turns out, that was a great plan to have. So yeah, I mean, really I mean, ignoring all the cameras was pretty easy because I don't know. It was not a part of my brain space. I mean, they were like asking me questions and stuff, and I was like, wait, what? Who are you? Like, why are you following me? Like, I didn't actually even, I don't know, like half of the race, I didn't even know what place I was in. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I mean, they do actually, to be fair, at Coconut, they have cameras on like a lot of people. So,
They do.
to your point, you could, if you choose to run Cocodona, be on camera as well.
But most people tuning into the live stream are not really saying, gosh, I hope I get another glimpse of Jeff. So
Their loss.
now my
Yeah,
family may be
exactly.
like, why aren't they showing Jeff? You know, but and I think it's great. I love what particularly Aravaipa is doing for just the
The
really
sport in
the
general
growth of the
too. Yeah.
sport. You
Well,
know,
the
it's like some people,
visibility, yeah,
right,
the visibility this year was unparalleled.
right.
So I work in healthcare, and I mean, my patients, when I got back, they treated me like a god or like
That's
a
awesome.
celebrity. They were like, we watched the whole thing. Like, some of my friends that were not runners, like, got into running because they watched Cocodona and they were like, oh, that, it was so cool. And
Yeah,
a lot of my friends, again, who don't run ultras, like, we go out in the woods, we're gone for 12 hours, we come back and like, hey, I did the thing. But they have
Yeah.
no idea what that means. And
right.
the live or the I guess it's a live stream. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to call it.
It is.
But
Yeah.
them having so many updates where you can visually see like, hey, this is what the runners are actually doing.
Yeah.
Really gave it, like I said, I mean, just a lot of visibility for people who have no idea what running an ultra actually looks like. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is because we know that cameras are definitely following the leaders and everything, and there's a lot of that can feel like pressure for some folks. So that's why I was curious, but I don't ask it from a negative standpoint because I know that there's two camps on this. There's some who think that this is moving the sport in the wrong direction, and then there are those who are thinking it's a great thing. I personally think it's a great thing because the more people that can get involved in the sport, the happier I am. I just want everybody to
Yeah.
try running ultras, and so I don't care
Agreed.
if they're going to win or not. I just want them to do like hang out and be a part of the sport because I think there's just so much it can help people just become in their lives. And so I think the visibility that Aravaipa and other race directors now are doing for their races is a win overall for the sport. It may make people crazy because I think it's becoming more commercialized or it's losing the essence behind it. I'm going to be one of those people who says, I don't care.
Yeah. And if you want to find old school ultras, they are definitely out there.
They're there.
So, I mean, it is a giant world out there. There's enough space for everybody to find happiness.
And again,
if you don't want to have a camera in your face, then
that's right.
Air bicycle races are not going to be the ones for you, but shoot me a DM and I'll tell you which races run.
There's plenty of them, and again, it's why we do podcasting and stuff. We just want more people to be exposed to it, to learn more about it and everything. And so I think kudos to them. I've talked to Jamil on one of, like I said, the other podcasts and stuff, but he's just a great guy, and the heart is real. And so I think it's a good thing. So let's talk about 2025.
Okay.
So you just won the Badger Mountain 100. You've already did your 48 hour in December as part of your prep for this as well. You're moving into your favorite season of Cocodona World, right?
Yay.
You're going back, and the assumption is you're going to be in the running for the whole thing. Now, I'm not saying you're going to win it, because we're not going to say that's our goal. We're going to say you're going to do your best, and we're going to see how it plays out. And we've joked about, Courtney and everybody that stuff too. I think she's going to do phenomenal. I think everybody who goes out there is going to do their best. And I think it's going to be a great, great day. What do you hope to duplicate from last year's performance other than winning?
I think that I did actually do a pretty good job of just not letting things get to me that occurred during the first, during the first 70%, it's all about, in my opinion, surviving. So I think I did do a really good job of pushing myself appropriately. Cause on the first day, I remember, the first day is tough. It's tough. It's again, not an easy race, but I do feel, I remember thinking to myself on that first day, like, am I going way too fast? Like, what am I doing up here with Arlen Glick? Like, why am I running next to Jeff Browning right now? Like, what am I thinking? But just being like, well, I feel like my fitness is here. I feel like I can support this later. And just really believing in myself that I'd put in the training. I had the experience, even if I hadn't done it in this particular distance. And, again, I sound like a broken record, but I'm here, I'm doing it. I'm going to see how this plays out. I'm going to try to push myself. This is supposed to be hard. If I am not trying my best, if I'm not trying my hardest, then why did I pay all this money to come to this race?
Yeah.
So, I hope that I keep that up. I know, and I feel the pressure of expectations on me this year to follow up with some insane result or beat Courtney or beat Sarah or beat, everybody. The women's race this year is going to be awesome.
Stacked.
I think.
It's stacked.
Yeah.
I am just honored to be a part of the conversation, to be honest. So, I hope that I can not feel that pressure this year in the same way that I didn't feel the pressure to do anything last year.
Yeah.
Nobody expected, or maybe people expected, my crew probably expected me to win. And I think some people called it, but for the most part, I was an unknown last year, just doing a thing. And I appreciated that during Cocodona. So I hope I can, in the same way I was able to kind of tune out the cameras, I hope I'm able to kind of tune out the noise of other people's expectations when their goals and my goals are different things.
God, I love that. I love that so much.
It's a good mindset to have.
Yeah. And that's honestly, especially with all of the success that I've had in my running, that is something that I do have to remind myself when I toe the line of almost any event is hey, other people's goals might be for you to win this, but that does not mean that has to be my goal. And that does not mean that if I do not win this, I have to be disappointed in myself. So it's a work in progress.
That goes back to, and Jeff, I'm sure you tell your athletes this too. I tell them, run your own race, right? Don't run anybody else's race. And whatever that happens to be, that's what happens to be. And like you said, if you're doing your best in your own race, then that's all you can ask of yourself, really.
That is all you can ask. Yep.
I want that for you so much. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I do. I want that for you a lot. I don't want you to feel that kind of pressure. I think like your personality is just so like alive and so positive, and I think it's unfair if that kind of if others say, well, it's just true. So I mean, I don't mind telling people the truth if you see it. So I just don't want you to. I hate that people's expectations can sometimes be an overwhelming thing, and I don't think anybody deserves that type of pressure. And just in life, I think we are living under our own personal pressures that we give ourselves. We don't need other people to add more to the pot. So
Agreed.
I think it's great that you are working on that and kind of keeping that in mind.
And again, I mean, all of this is stuff that I learned through running and can apply to my own life outside of running. So running is the best. That's my plug.
I agree.
So how from a training perspective, I know you said nutrition, you're still not, you know what to do with that, right? I won't even bother then.
Pizza. I don't know. Eat pizza.
Eat everything. Eat whatever your stomach will tolerate, right? But just make sure you eat something. How would you compare your training? Let me rephrase that. Sorry. Do you train differently for Cocodona than you do for a 100-miler? And if so, what do you think the biggest differences are?
I just like to run. So for Cocodona, I did emphasize, I think, back long runs a little bit more than I do normally. But that honestly, I mean, training for Cocodona aligned very much with how I run anyway. I really like doing big days in the mountains and long back-to-back days. So I did way more 50 milers in training than I wanted to, I think. But with the expectation, like, learning to run on legs that are dead ass tired is going to be how Cocodona is going to go. Like, they're going to be, you're mile 183 and you don't want to run, and tuning back to, all those miles that I did on legs that did not want to move is going to be very beneficial. So, but again, I mean, during the summer when I'm, I used to live in California and I would be out in the Eastern Sierras just constantly putting in I would do 3 30-mile days in a row, and that would be like, hell yeah. So I maybe dialed up the volume, I guess, 10 to 20%, but I like running high volume. So a race like Cocodona, I think, kind of speaks to my strengths in training. Just because the longer it is, the more I like it. So yeah.
So when you say you up the volume too, did the elevation come with that, or did you specifically add any elevation in too?
So I did make it a point. I did a lot of training for Cocodona in kind of Santa Barbara, Ventura, Ojai, Santa Monica mountains, which are amazing. And actually, I mean, they're steep. And there is a lot. I mean, there was a 50-mile route I did twice that had, I want to say, 12,000 feet of gain in it. So, I mean, the first day of Cocodona terrified me when I was thinking about it from a training perspective. And I just wanted to make sure that I felt prepared for that. So yeah, I mean, I tried to do a little bit of heat acclimation, which is definitely easier to do in Los Angeles than Colorado. But yeah, I tried to do a lot of heat acclimation. I tried to do a lot of altitude or elevation, and I actually did try to do altitude training. I mean, some of the mountains out in Ojai are at 6K, and I would do those because I really wanted to. I find that there's a lot of value in training in conditions that are similar to the race that you're going to be doing. And I mean, Arizona and California are different, but in some ways they're dry, they're deserts, they're pretty rocky. I tried to find mountains local to me that mimicked those conditions, and then just stayed out there as much as I could. But yeah, so I did think about what are race conditions like? How can I simulate those in ways that don't drive me insane? So yeah, I thought, I did a little bit of, not as much as I should have probably, but I did do a lot of pack training too. I loaded my pack up with, 5 liters of water, and all right, well, how does this feel? Terrible is how it feels. But yeah, and I did, just to, is my pack going to fit in a way that's going to annoy me? How can I fix that? How can I make sure that in race day I'm as prepared as I can be? But too, I mean, nothing is going to prepare you for the race quite like doing the race itself. So I think also I tried to give myself as much grace as I could during the event to make mistakes and then not let them deter me from my ultimate goal of finishing. I prepared, I think, adequately. So, always, always be prepared. There were a couple of variables that I chose to gamble with. But at the end of the day, I mean, I went into Cocodona, I think, pretty fit. I went in knowing how to, manage my water, which is very important. And I had figured out where I was getting pacers and how my crew was going to interact with me and what we were going to do in that regard. So, I mean, poles, I've never run with poles. If I didn't run with poles during Cocodona, it was probably not going to be a huge deal. They just happened to be something that I picked up with really quickly and that I do actually think really helped.
Yeah, they do.
So, you pick your battles. You only have 24 hours in the day. So
It's true.
pick what you can. I don't know. I picked things that if I did poorly would be detrimental. And I focused on those things. The utilization of poles, I think, is great. It's a bonus, but I don't think it's as important as figuring out how you're going to manage carrying 5 liters of water.
Is there anything different? Because I know for me, the first Cocodona, it was like almost naive going into it. And where I was like, oh, again, let's see what happens. But then the second and third one, like 30 seconds before the gun went off, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a really long time that I'm out here. So is there anything different about going back to it for the second time? Or do you think you're taking what you've learned and there won't be as much of that, oh crap moment?
I mean, to me, I've done this race before, but every race is different. So I am excited to see sections again. Certainly, I'm also not excited to see sections that I hated. Not that I hated any of them. It's a beautiful course, but
It's gorgeous.
I mean, it's gonna be a different. Every race is different. I mean, you never get the same people that show up. You never have the same conditions. You never are quite in the same place as you were a year ago or whenever you last did it. So I have the Cocodona experience in that I finished, but it's a completely different ballgame every single time you step up to a race. So the only thing that I would like to, I think, perhaps change in this year versus last year is I don't care that I did this last year because obviously it worked out in my favor. But I definitely spent a lot of time just dilly-dallying once I had met up with my crew at certain points. There were times when I would just be sitting there for 10 minutes, not caring that I wasn't accomplishing anything. I was just sitting there. And, I would like to be a lot more efficient with my pit stops this year because I do think that that's a lot of wasted time. I can probably make up 2 hours of time that I just wasted sitting around shooting the shit with my crew. Because, at the end of the day, exactly, there it is. It's slipping through my fingers because I'm too busy gossiping with my buddies at the aid stations. But yeah, I mean, I think, this year I do think that is a way for me to make up some time. And this year I would like to be a little bit more diligent and a little bit more, what's the word? I don't know, pointed with how my crew stops are going to go and not waste, some of them I was waiting around on my pacer to put on his shoes. And that is something that I don't want. It's fine. I mean, again, didn't care because there is value too in sitting and doing nothing. And that is how I chose. That is how I chose to look at it last year. My friend Jake, he has raced cars, and those are pit stops. I mean, you're in and out in 10 seconds. And he was like, "Okay, so we can have 2 packs, and we're gonna fill it, and we're just gonna give it to you, and you're gonna leave." And I was like, "That is not going to work for me because there is value in. I want to sit here. I want to stare into space. I want somebody to feed me ramen, and then we're just gonna leave whenever." And so that's how I approached it last year. But yeah, this year I think that's the one area that I'd like to maybe be a little bit more diligent with is dead time.
It's a balance though, right? Yeah, because you still want to have you want to remove the pressure also as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very important. I mean, my crew people are taking a week of their lives to help me do this stupid thing that no one cares about. So, I do want to make sure that I'm not just treating them like they are only their roles, like they're people. And I do want to make sure that while we are out there, everybody is fine, and everybody's enjoying themselves. But
and you seem like you want to have fun with it too.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point, man. I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard, but you got to enjoy it, or else I don't know. Life is
100%.
I mean, life is hard enough. Running should
Yeah.
be the thing that is fun.
Yeah.
So,
I'll tell you what, I would love to see Sedona during the day. I've seen it at night every time. I hear it's quite beautiful.
oh my
I've
God,
never seen
dude,
it during the day.
oh, so the one thing that I'm like, I want to do, because obviously everybody, if you do a race once, you do want to go and you want to best your time, whatever. But part of me is like, I want to do exactly the same time because I hit Sedona at like 4 a.m. and I got to see the sunrise and I got to
Oh,
watch all the
nice.
rocks. And me and my buddy Jake, who I have like a very deep connection with, he was pacing me at that point. And I mean, we both wept. Like it
That's
was, I mean,
amazing.
I hope you get to see it in the daytime also. I hope you get to see it at 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. because that is when I saw it. And I mean, that was a life peak for sure.
That's amazing.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was one of the most magical things I've ever seen, and it wasn't too hot. So
Yeah,
I hear
Steve,
Sedona can be quite hot.
Yeah.
Steve, you're going to be out crewing this year, so you should be able to have an opportunity to
Yeah.
do that. So you'll be
I'll be
Oh,
pacing
you're
able to
yourself.
screwing. Oh,
whatever. Yeah, I'm going to go back. I haven't. So I want to go back one more time and get my 1,000-mile buckle and then maybe put Cocodona to bed. But I'm going to go out and crew one of my other buddies from the East Coast. She's coming out and she's a total badass.
sweet.
So I'm happy to be able to see it from that side too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you'll be a great crew member for sure
Mhm.
because you have so much experience with the course. But yeah, if you on one of your free days or whatever, like after the race is over, just hit up Sedona at 4 a.m. and just like stand there slack
Sit
jawed.
there.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Highly recommend. Highly recommend.
So, Rachel, we've definitely talked a lot about Cocodona, but there are some things that we want to touch on just a little bit before we let you go. In your email that you sent us, no pressure to remember what you said, but I will tell you,
I
you
have it in
said
front of
that,
me, so I prepared.
perfect. Grade A student. In your email, you told us that how you feel running is a reflection on how your life is going. So Steve and I went all over the board back and forth, like, what does she mean by that? Instead of us trying to like decode that, what do you mean by that statement?
Okay, so I've talked a lot about my friend Jake, but my friend Jake and I kind of say that back and forth to each other because when our lives are really chaotic and frenetic, that tends to be kind of how we approach running. Like there's a lot of anxiety. And I find too that like, because sometimes you don't always know how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But if I start to feel some of that like frenetic, anxious energy in my runs, like, oh God, like I have to go and get this, I have to go running today, or like I have to hit this certain mileage per week. Like I need to probably step back and examine like, okay, what am I insecure about right now? Or like, what am I worried about right now? Or conversely, like I find that I have the most enjoyable runs when sorry, cat, when I have a lot of like peace in my life, and I have a lot of balance. You're able to kind of push the envelope a little bit more because you have that available energy. If you're constantly running on an empty tank, your running is going to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And I often don't know that I'm running on an empty tank because I choose to ignore that. But if I start to notice like, hey, I feel shitty every time I go out for a run, then that to me is a really good indicator of like, okay, well, it's probably not my fitness. It's probably not the fact that I suddenly hate running. It's probably like something else is happening in my life. And I need to figure out like what that thing is so that this activity that is quite strenuous can be something that I can manage again. So that is what that very cryptic statement means. And I mean, I've had many conversations with Jake where I'm like I have to do this thing and I have to do that thing all like, I have to go run this route and I have to do it all by tomorrow. And he's like, okay, like what is going on with you right now? And I'm like, I don't know. And then the next day I'll be like, well, so I'm really anxious about my job and like, I really want this promotion or like I have this patient. And it's just like, okay, so that's what's going on. So yeah, I mean, if you take a step back, I think a lot of the times you can, and because I think running does put us at one of our like more raw places, I mean, you just don't have the energy to like hide emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there have been many runs where I have just like gotten extremely frustrated and then just like sat down and boohooed. And it's like, oh, I actually feel this way about my job situation or my relationship. And like, I can, I've been provided this opportunity to like spend all this time with myself. And like, I could use this time that I'm spending running to also think about like, okay, well, how can I fix this? So a lot of the times, I mean, I know there's all these t-shirts and mugs that say like running is my therapy, but like running is a great opportunity to analyze how your life is going and figure out like what am I doing to ensure that like I'm doing this at my best. I mean, just like running, the goal isn't to win. The goal is just to try your best. So
yeah, I love it. Just this week, I told one of my runners, he went out on a run. He'd been running great. Went out on a run. He had a bad run. And he's saying, it's just a bad run. I don't know what's wrong with my fitness. I don't know what's wrong with my legs, whatever. And I was like, hey, I know we say running is an escape. And I know we say that running is a way away from all of our problems. I said, but sometimes our runs are bad because we are not dealing with things in our life. I said, so perhaps don't always just look at your run being bad and your fitness is bad today. If you have a bad run and everything's been going well for a while, just step back. And it's okay to do this to yourself and say, how is my relationship going with my family, my friends, whatever? How's my work going? What stress do I feel? And I don't think we give that enough credit when it comes to how we run. And we tend to say, why is my running failing me? Yep. Because it's not designed just to be your escape mechanism from life. Yeah. It's just what you do, and I think it's great. It makes sense to me now.
Yeah, running is a big mirror into your emotional state, I think. So
yeah, that's a good point. And stress is stress no matter where it comes from. And running is another stress. And sometimes it's tough to relieve stress with another stressor.
Exactly.
Yeah. So. All right. So what advice would you give to somebody? Let's say that you meet somebody, out on the street, right? And you're just passing them and they're like, I see that you run. I saw you on YouTube the other day. You ran this long race. I don't know how you can do that stuff. But hey, I'm, in my 20s or 30s and stuff. And I guess I'm curious about like, what do I need to do? So how would you encourage somebody to try out the sport or to get into the sport?
Come on and run with me. That's nice. What I would say. Because I think there's a lot of value in people who have experience helping others see the value in what it is that we're doing out there. Because sure, running is, it's a great way to stay in shape and cardiovascular health is really important. But again, I use running as a tool to help me manage life. And so I think, I've had brilliant conversations with my friends on runs. I've had brilliant conversations with my friends after we just accomplished this insane feat of summiting Mount Whitney or doing 50 miles in the, Santa Monica's or whatever. So, one of my favorite things to do is take people who do not think that they can do a thing and then show them that they can. I love taking people on their first ultras. Usually it is not even in a race setting. I'll just be like, hey, we're going to do 27 miles a day. And like, it's probably going to be fun. And then it is. And sometimes it's not. But, either way, it's a learning experience. And I do think that, it seems hard to, do that amount of distance, but like, a lot of stuff is hard. And if you put in the work, there are no shortcuts. You have to put in the work, but if you're willing to put in the work, then, you can do it. So just, like I said, anybody who's curious about whether or not they want to run, just like I said, I invite you to run with me anytime.
Yeah. Jeff, you saw it, right? So my wife was not a runner before we met, and I really wasn't even a runner too, but when I got into it, she got into it. And then even this last weekend, Jeff and I came back from a race. I ran the Blackbeard 100 mile in North Carolina, and my mom trained all year, and she went out and ran it with me. And she did.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, she did her first.
So I'm like about to cry. That's so.
It was gold.
It was amazing. She made it 50 miles, and that was the furthest she's ever run. And she did her first like official half marathon, first official marathon, 50K and 50 milers all in one race. It was amazing.
Yeah, that is so cool. And that is another thing too that like I said, I love about running is like age does not matter. Again, I saw 5 80-year-olds battle to the death, at this 100-miler. And like every single one of those dudes is like, I mean, they're, one of them was literally 85 and he's out there still running 100 miles. So, I mean, it is not impossible. It is not impossible. It's incredibly inspiring to see everybody out there getting it for sure.
I have got way too many more questions for you. So I'm now trying to figure out what I'm just not going to ask you because I've run out of time.
Invite me back for part 2.
Right. Well, I may have to after Cocodona.
After.
So,
Okay.
And say, are you just as positive? Because you just crushed it again. Like, maybe that's what I'll ask you. How do you handle pain? What's that's a really great, difficult, not clear question. So let me rephrase it to give you somewhere to go with that a little bit different. We all know that in ultras, we're going to experience pain. Things are going to hurt. Our legs are going to hurt. Our minds are going to hurt. Our body's going to hurt. You're going to break a rib like you said you did earlier. Like something's going to hurt. Right. So do you have any strategies that you employ when the pain begins to be unbearable? Like, do you tune it out? Do you practice mindfulness or meditations? Do you do any kind of mantras? Like, what do you do when the pain just hits? Because we know it's going to hit. What do you do in those situations?
I think the important thing is remembering that it's all temporary. So, I mean, yeah, of course, I've had races where like, oh my God, I think my toe is about to fall off. And then 25 minutes later, I'm like, what did that ever hurt? Like, I don't even remember. So 9 times out of 10, the thing that's bothering you right now is not going to bother you within the hour. And even if it is still bothering you within the hour, it's not going to hurt to hope that it won't. So for me, I think, it's just a matter of like, sure, I might feel terrible right now, but that is not an indicator that I'm going to feel this way forever. I think my big management strategy is, I have to accept that this is something that's happening right now, but, maybe in 20 minutes it'll be better, or maybe in 20 minutes it'll be worse, and I'll have to figure out what my next steps are. But it's all just pieces of the puzzle,
It's problem solving for sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people we lose sight of the temporariness. Yeah, I don't know if that's a word of it, because we get we don't think it's ever going to end, and so when you do the distances that you're doing, it becomes almost insurmountable in our minds for a lot of folks, because they're like, it's just going to get worse. And I think if we could hold on to the idea that this is even temporary, not just the race itself, but this experience that I'm having within the race could also be temporary. One of our previous guests, he said he just wants to be curious. He uses this mantra, be curious, whenever those situations occur. Like, be curious, what if it gets better? What if it doesn't, continue to bother me? Like, how can I approach this in a way that is curious, not just doom scrolling my life away? But
I think curiosity in ultra running is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So good. Whoever that guy is, kudos.
John Rumker. He comes out this Friday. So he is
Rumker. Fantastic last name. What a name.
Right? All right. Well, Steve, do you have anything else? Otherwise, I'm going to move to the closing part of it. All right, cool. So we do a segment at the end of all of our podcasts that we call the Coach's Corner. And it's a time that we ask a question that a listener has sent in, and we try to answer it ourselves. We invite our guest to answer it. Since you are a professional,
I am absolutely not. Go on.
Sometimes it's fun. Okay, Rachel, let me have fun. So since none of us are professionals, right, if you will, but since we all love the sport and we all have our own nuanced ideas of how things should run, this question comes in from Zachary. He said he would like to know, what is the best food for recovery? Now, you've already advocated that you're a nutritionist by heart and you love your nutrition strategy. So this should be a fun answer.
Did you do this on purpose? I don't know.
No, it's like I didn't know, but it's perfect, right? And so
it works out great.
We're going to answer it first to kind of, lay a little groundwork for you. And then you can tell us what you think is the best food for recovery. And Steve, you or me, who do you want to go first?
I'll take a shot at it first. Typically, my food for recovery after a race is it's probably not the best. So I'll go with that first, and then I'll go with what I would recommend and not what I would do myself. Is usually a whole box of mega stuffed Oreos.
What?
I was so hoping you were about to go with Oreos. Okay, go on. Sorry.
I will eat the entire, pretty much I'd say put that in my pack for the finish line, because I will almost eat the entire bag at the end of the race. So that's
like a thing you do every time. Every time you're like, Oreos are the answer.
At like the finish line, yeah. Like that's I'd make
Wow.
sure like my kids know to have Oreos, my parents know, and it can't be the regular because the regular is crap. It's the mega
Yeah.
stuffed.
All right, baller.
But I
So,
wouldn't do that for like recovery specifically. That's just to make yourself feel better. I would say what I would recommend to my athletes would be high protein, good carbs, just well balanced meal, really focusing on like the high protein.
so I'm laughing really hard on this
So
because
you're a hypocrite. That's what
right.
you're saying.
Well,
Okay.
I'm about to say the same kind of thing. Is that so? Like for me, I don't drink soda, and so I gave it up a while ago. But in an ultra run, I give myself soda after the race. Like it's one of the first things I do. I'm going to swing by a gas station or wherever it is, or I'm going to get all the free ones off the aid station. I'm just going to start downing soda for the rest of the evening. Again, it's the way I treat myself. But the irony of this question is that we all do this. I'm not saying all, Rachel. I apologize for pulling you under this with us at this point. But
Yeah, don't loop me into your hypocrisy circle.
right.
I'm not.
I'm already picking up the vibe that you're going to be on board here in a minute, but that's beside the point. The funny thing is the question says, what's the best food for recovery? And Steve and I at least, eat crap to start. And yet we do recommend runners eat protein and everything. And so I think the problem is that our bodies crave crap. They
Yeah.
crave something that we are in such calorie deficit. It's like, what's the first thing I can eat that can make my cells explode with happiness? I don't think that's proper recovery, but I do think that within a day you should start eating foods that are higher protein. And I do that. And I try to get better balance to my hydration and stuff. And I try to start replenishing electrolytes immediately after as much as I can. But I think you kind of have to just go with what your body's craving, and you're gonna be like a trash panda
That's
the whole
candy,
time.
I say.
So what about you, Rachel?
I mean, I basically joke that I'm a dumpster with legs. So yeah, my recommendation is pretty much exactly what you said. I think eat whatever you want to recover, to be honest. Usually though, I do find myself particularly after races where I'm trying to just cram in high calorie foods that might not be the most healthy, but are what I need in order to continue with this race. I do find myself actually craving vegetables. So within probably the day, I'll be like, I just want a salad. I do that after big camping trips too, where I'm like doing a lot of running and eating a lot of just like whatever I can find at the gas station. I'll get home and be like salad or like soup or something that actually has nutritional value. I think our bodies are smarter than we give them credit for sometimes. I think in the immediate, like I just crossed the finish line, whatever you put into your body is going to be utilized. So eat whatever sounds good and you'll probably be fine.
Yeah, it's so
please
funny.
Just don't keep that everything in moderation, including moderation. So, don't eat only double stuff Oreos for the rest of your life. But I think I think anything is beneficial when you finish. So eat whatever sounds good.
I laugh at everybody on this topic only because after a race, during a race, most people tell me that they couldn't eat, they struggled eating. And yet as soon as they cross that finish line, it's like, what can I eat off the ground? I'm so hungry. Like they'll eat anything. Like it's amazing. Like I can't eat for the previous 24 hours because I feel like garbage. My stomach hurts. I'm nauseous. But as soon as I cross the finish line, somehow, miracle upon miracle, I will eat the dirt if I have to. Like it's just whatever.
Yeah. It's funny. I actually usually, right after races, my number one priority is like somebody let me lie down because I am exhausted and want to sleep. But usually I wake up in 2 hours and I'm like, okay, like I want pancakes and ramen at the same time. So yeah.
Dipping it in. Dip the pancake into the ramen.
That's funny.
Oh,
well,
genius.
Rachel, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It's been a lot of fun. Definitely love
really
talking about Cocodona. Also talking about timed events at the beginning. I think that was something that I was not expecting. And I think you have a lot of experience there that I think is really good. I think for most of us to kind of look at that as an opportunity to maybe do distances we've never done before. And so I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a blueprint to ultra.
It is a blueprint to ultra.
Sure.
Well played, my friend. Well played.
Thank you.
I am excited for you at Cocodona. I think you're going to do fantastic. I love your mindset. I think you're very positive and you are contagious in and of yourself. I bet your crew loves hanging out with you too. It's just a fun person. And so, thank you for hanging out with us. Yeah, no, I'm serious. Like your personality is just like through the roof vibrant and it comes across. And I bet just your crew thinks it's fun to be a part of it. So I wish you the best at Cocodona. I think it's going to be a fantastic race. So I'm excited for you and excited just to see how it plays out for everybody else. Rachel, what's the best way for people to keep up with you if they want to follow along?
Probably
Instagram?
get my cell number.
No,
I
good
suck
Lord,
at,
no, we don't do
I suck at
that.
the internet. I suck at the internet. I'm never going to get
Yeah.
sponsored because I suck at the internet. But
Yeah.
I am on Instagram.
There you
Rachel 2_Entrekin. And then I'm on Strava. I don't know. I
Perfect.
mean, I'm really bad at the internet. So don't,
That's
I
okay.
will only post pictures
Yeah,
of my
that's all right.
kids, pretty much.
We like that.
Okay.
You're public
That
on
works.
Strava too, we noticed. So anybody can follow you.
I did not know that. So I am public on Strava.
You can change that.
I
if
don't
you-
even
we
know how to
actually
make myself private on Strava.
We just looked before the show because we were checking like your elevation gains over the year so far because we're just
Oh.
curious.
Oh, nice. I don't even know what it is. I don't know what I'm doing.
Steve,
That's
like
very good.
120,000?
You can do it too.
128,000 feet of gain this year.
Cool. I was thinking to myself actually earlier this week, I was like, I wonder if I can get like 500,000 feet of gain. I think I'm going to try to just see if that
That's-
happens. So
That's my goal for the year. I'm like 28,000 behind you. So, but that's my goal. Yeah.
nice. I think we can do it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Let's do it. All right.
I mean, by the end of May, you'll probably have 200.
Yeah.
That'd be sick. I don't know. I've got a lot of cool things I'm planning on doing this summer. So hopefully
awesome.
that'll, I mean, God, I just moved to Colorado. So I'm going to
Yeah. So
paint
how
the
could you not?
mountains red. Exactly.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, follow me on
Cocodona,
Strava
too.
to watch me. Yeah. So follow me on Strava to watch me run all the mountains.
That's right. And obviously, everybody can tune into Cocodona. That'll be live streamed. So we will be following along there as well. So super excited for you. Really, I've said it 1,000 times. I will stop saying it, but I'm happy for you and looking forward to following.
Yeah.
For those listening, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the whole episode. We hope you stuck around and got something about it from Cocodona. If you're interested in doing a 200 or 200 plus mile race, I think you can learn a lot just following Rachel's story. And you can make a splash on the scene like she has done over the years, literally across the years as well. And so, again, thank you. Yeah, puns are here. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today. And we will talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.